I am Odell Miner, candidate for mayor of Provo. I was born in Sanpete County, graduated North Sanpete High School. Actually was thrilled to get a scholarship to attend BYU. Our family moved to Provo in 1959 because it was cheaper, it seemed, to move us to Provo than it was to provide for the tuition. I was a missionary at age 19. I was called to the North Central States Mission. We're headquarters in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Married my wife Dorothy, and who is a graduate of BYU in elementary education. We owned our first home in Provo in 1968. I was elected and served as Provo City Commissioner from 1974 to 1978. We built our current residence in Provo in 1975. We have 4 children and 11 grandchildren. I was educated at Brigham Young University. My bachelor's degree is in history with minors in English and political science. My master's degree is also from Brigham Young University, where I studied public as well as personnel administration and graduated with an MPA. Later on, I finished my doctorate at the University of Utah, where the official degree is political science, but the major emphasis was public administration with a particular emphasis in public finance. Professionally, I've served as assistant to the city manager in Scottsdale, Arizona, and in Orem, Utah. Some years ago, I had that privilege in that great city. Became Provo City Commissioner, was elected and served a 4-year term, as I've already mentioned. I didn't seek a second year in Provo as a commissioner because I hadn't finished my doctorate, and I had an opportunity to do that and work at the Utah League of Cities and Towns as Director of Research and Training. After that, we were fortunate to move to Tennessee, where I was based at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville and served as Executive Director of the Municipal Technical Advisory Service. There are 333 municipalities in Tennessee, and our consultants in law and finance, engineering, and public safety were scattered throughout the state. It was a singular opportunity to live and work in Tennessee and direct that great program based at the university's Institute of Public Service. Following that, we returned to Provo. We actually adopted 2 more children in Tennessee. And our trips back to Utah with them was instrumental in our socialization as a family. They were so taken by grandmas and grandpas and by aunts and uncles and cousins that they had not known in foster care, that it just seemed like the right thing to do to move them back to Utah so we could raise this 11-year-old boy and his baby half-sister with our other 2 children who were 13 and 9 at the time. And so that's why we returned to Utah. I'm actually a social and behavioral scientist by official training in much of our emphasis, and this process of adopting children gave us a further interest in that. So I worked at the Provo Canyon Boys School for a time as admissions director. My job duties there, in brief, were to travel throughout the western states, principally in California, where there were over 32,000 licensed clinical, social, behavioral, and other specialists whom I worked with, and many of their clients came to Provo Canyon School. After that, I worked as a registered representative for Smith Barney and at Piper Jaffray, where I principally worked in municipal bonds and worked with, again, the public finance specializations that I had previously spent a lot of time with. I had started an Institute of Public Affairs, which we called the Rocky Mountain Institute of Public Affairs. We consulted with the rural counties and cities in Utah, providing them technical services. The Rocky Mountain Institute was actually a consortium of professional consultants, engineering, law, and financial advisors who worked closely with these smaller cities, helping them with their budgets and some of the other planning issues. I retired from that, sort of retired, and had an opportunity to serve on the professional faculty as an adjunct faculty at the University of at Utah Valley University. So the last 14 years of my life, I've been there as adjunct faculty, and that was a singular opportunity to be in the classroom, teaching the American Constitution, our great heritage as Americans, the companion documents of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and state and local government, public affairs, and another classes is assigned by the department chairman. It was a great experience to see the meteoric growth of Utah Valley University. Back to this point about having served previously as city commissioner. The commission form of government actually grew out of a tidal wave in Galveston, Texas in 1903. And out of that emergency grew the need to immediately respond to the needs of local government. So they created commissions which combined the executive and legislative functions in municipalities. They could make decisions on financial decisions and management decisions and operational decisions. So they could address the exigencies they were dealing with at the time. Many of the counties, I think most all of the counties, with the exception of Utah County Salt Lake County. Salt Lake County currently has a mayor-council form of government. And those are optional forms that were given by the state legislature some years ago, I believe in the late 70s, to local governments. By the way, incidentally, we might want to consider that in Utah County at some future time, because this commission form of government changed in Provo, and principally, I believe, because of two things. Number one, representation was not broad enough in the community. The representative issue, when you just have a mayor and two commissioners, which is the body I served with, Mayor Russell Grange, Commissioner Wayne Hillier, Commissioner Earl Wignall, the three of us made all of the executive decisions. Each of us had a statutory function that we presided over. I was over public affairs and finance in the city, as well as the Freedom Festival, and so all of those things, and well as Parks and Recreation. The mayor was over public safety and energy largely, and Commissioner Hillier, early in our administration, was over public works and planning. So each of us had statutory roles. When that changed, and I believe Glee Zembrennan, of a restaurateur here in Provo, Heaps of Pizza, I believe. I'm remembering now it's brick oven, I appreciate that. That there was a movement to change the form of government from a commission to a council form of government. That occurred actually while I was in Tennessee, at the University of Tennessee, I believe in the early 80s, 1980, 81, 82, something like that. So what we have in Provo now is a strong mayor council form of government with a chief administrative officer. So all of the executive functions of the city are handled by the mayor's office. The separation of powers is the second major reason why it's a good idea to change to a mayor-council form, because in that separation of powers, you don't centralize all of the power in the chief executive. If the chief executive could make all the executive decisions and also have the power of the purse, then there's a great concern about too much of that being lodged in one individual. So the council has major responsibilities for the budget. We have a true separation of powers now, which comports with the legislature and the governor. They're both separate. The legislature makes all the budget decisions. And at the national level, the president makes all of the executive and administrative decisions, and the Congress, specifically by the first article of the Constitution, has the responsibility for controlling funds. I hope that wasn't too ponderous, but I think it might be instructive for us as citizens to remember our evolution here of government in Provo. And let me just say I'm elated with that change. I was strongly supported that change, even though I was out of state at the time. And I am happy to be serving as the mayor, and I do understand what the executive function will be. I was raised in agriculture. I live in an agricultural zone. I identify with agriculture, and I think it's a key issue for us, even though many may be overlooking the growth that still has to occur in Provo and how we balance that and keep the open spaces that are so vital to the environment and to wildlife and other elements that are crucial to our way of life here in Provo. Well, as requested, I've identified the 4 major areas. These are well known to people that have been engaged in Provo and living in Provo. The downtown convention center parking is probably the most crucial and most pressing issue, because in late May, the Utah County Commission filed a lawsuit against Provo City over insufficient parking for the convention center. The real interesting thing about this is apparently Provo City officials believe they have reasonably provided necessary parking spaces. And I'm assured by the city attorney's office that this is well in hand and that there will be in due time answers filed, and hopefully the city and the county will be able to resolve that. That's the first issue. The second issue is downtown parking in general. There's insufficient parking is identified as a priority issue for many of the businesses downtown. A trip down there by any of us for whatever purpose soon confirms that parking is an ongoing matter in Provo. We have some structural parking built, but obviously I think the answer long term is to build more of that. The residential parking is crucial. And here I'm going to refer to a specific discussion which has just recently occurred, but is very instructive of the issues that we face in residential parking. On the 6th of June, just a couple weeks ago, an agenda item on the council referred to residential parking infringements in the Foothills neighborhood. This is in the Seven Peaks Boys and Girls Club area in East Central Provo. The input indicated that many Seven Peaks patrons are parking in the immediately surrounding area on neighborhood streets. Several neighbors were present and expressed concerns related to parking problems. Again, I'm working from some prepared text here because I have prepared this for the Herald, and will be happy to also refer to this as you may call me as citizens and want to know more about this. Following much discussion on intent to create permit parking system in the area, the item was tabled pending arrival of the new parking administrator and a plan to resolve parking issues in that area. My interest in this is that there seem to be concerns around all areas of campus. I know people well who live around the campus, and this seems to be an ongoing issue, as well as in the downtown area where there's infringement. And may I also say it appears there's a lack of consistent and strict enforcement of parking, and we may be just stretched too thin. I don't know, because I'm aware we have a dedicated vehicle to that, and we'll wait to see how this unfolds over the next few months. I do have one more issue here, and then I'll talk about my answers. Transportation issues involving BRT. Even though that issue is resolved and it's underway, there are many in Provo who this remains a matter of great concern to them. So while I'm on that, let me address the answer to that in my view. Clearly we're growing. Clearly we have a need for more mass transit. The great concern that's been expressed to me is that the numbers of riders, the number of riders on BRT just do not match. And the projections are and were during this process of deciding on this greatly inflated and way estimated. So I think it's crucial for us to establish a specific mass transit Citizens Advisory Board and look closely at this. In fact, let me just speak to that in a more technical and specific way. I will schedule a citywide summit to address parking issues in Provo. I will invite all neighborhood chairs, interested or affected citizens, university parking and facilities representatives, student body officers who can represent the students, Provo City administrative and enforcement personnel. Anyone else who may have a stake in that summit, we will gladly include. We will identify the full scope of the problems. We will delineate and establish priorities requiring attention through a needs analysis. With guidance and input from the city administrative and enforcement personnel, we will formulate a response action plan. We will publish findings and suggest probable solutions. We will disseminate that action plan to each affected and concerned or involved citizen. You may get a copy of that, be fully aware of what's being suggested to solve these problems. We will then implement and monitor the action plan results. With ongoing input from residents and students, we will strictly enforce the action plan in each neighborhood. We will document and respond to all citizens' concerns. This is a pressing and prevailing problem, and there isn't any reason why we can't get better at addressing it. In that respect, let me just say a broader initiative for my administration is to enhance the neighborhood program and work even harder on many areas, not just parking, but many areas, to involve the citizens. The citizen involvement and engagement model is the answer to better law enforcement, to better administration, to better budgeting, to all of the issues of the city. And as we marshal the citizens of Provo, we will improve our community, and we will engage our citizens, and even the younger people, especially those in the junior high and high school age, will become cognizant of issues facing the city and be participants in suggesting things that we can do to improve Provo City. I have much more to say about this in the future. For right now, I think that's sufficient to say that will be a hallmark of the Odell Miner administration as mayor of Provo. Let me add one other thing here on parking. It may be also advisable to establish a downtown parking advisory committee based on input from DPL or the Downtown Provo Inc., or DPI, I mean, and to address the specific concerns of businesses and property owners downtown. That's where we have the greatest concentration right now of parking issues, and those need to be addressed and resolved as soon as it's reasonable to do so. Economic development is obviously vital to any city because of the importance of jobs coming in, revenues increasing, and overall economic well-being happening in the city. Provo is fortunate to have a balanced economy based on a number of key economic indicators such as a highly skilled workforce, diversity of economic activity, infrastructure, and growth potential. Some have noted that Provo seems landlocked and limited in its potential for growth. Those who have examined related issues thoughtfully know that there is substantial room for continued growth and development in Provo City. In all economic sectors of our community, in agriculture and commercial and light industrial and business and commercial downtown and residential, there are multiple opportunities for us to further develop and grow our city. This year's budget, the fiscal year starting July 1st, which is just a few days away, ending next June 30th in 2018, which was just adopted by the City Council this week, outlines the following economic development goals. I think it's really important for us as Provo citizens to be aware of what the budget says. These are summarized, and I'm going to go over 5 or 6 of these, are to implement deliverables within the citywide economic development strategic plan. There is a strategic plan for the city, and we need to be aware of that and update it, change it, or work with it however it presently exists. We need to continue our effort with entrepreneurship and technical skills and development in our community. That is one of these now I'm quoting from the budget. Continue effort with entrepreneurial and tech community in Provo. The third one is continue to grow the braid workshop for women entrepreneurs. The fourth is to continue to grow scope and reach of Provo Girls Summit. The fifth is to maintain Vista Business Center, seek opportunities for the expansion and growth of local businesses in the business park, and provide space for those businesses looking to relocate in the Provo area. I think we need to emphasize that. Provide space for those businesses looking to relocate to the Provo area. We need to further manage the wetland areas of Mountain Vista. And the last one that's mentioned in this year's budget is this goal for economic development. The business center needs to be developed, and that's what's implied. It says business center in order to maximize developable land. What's really curious to me is in recent budget hearings, some council members have expressed a desire to dive deeper in economic development. I like that phrase, and I'm persuaded that that's what needs to happen in developing the city's economy. The current budget also includes this statement, and I'm quoting from the budget now. The city's economic base is an important element and has a dramatic influence on the city's financial health in determining the city's quality of life and credit rating. These are so vital to us as Provo residents. We just must pay attention to it and make sure these are always dynamic and vital and growing. That's an aside. To continue with the quote from the budget, the city shall continue to expand and diversify its economic base by attracting industrial, commercial, and other firms to the city. Special emphasis should be given to industrial and commercial enterprises that will employ the local labor force and generate sales tax revenues. Such businesses and industry will be in accordance with the plans, meaning the business plans, and the ordinances of the city. Of course, that goes without saying. We have regulations for the purposes of protecting all of our interests so that can occur. I'll just conclude this answer by saying it seems apparent to me, and my administration will thoroughly research and target approaches in addressing specific locations, tenant requirements, and profitability potentialities that will move Provo's economic development forward at an accelerated pace. In certain instances, the tax increment approach has real merit. We have to be cautious about that in terms of the term and the amount of tax incentive offered, and to make sure that's a performance-based relationship and negotiation. As long as that's occurring, then the city likely will benefit by doing tax increment financing. It's a very common tool that's used in cities throughout the nation, and it's been highly effective for businesses who have so many expenses coming in with facilities and infrastructure and other issues. A second way to approach that is how much new infrastructure or remodeled infrastructure will businesses need in order to do that. And in this area, the city can probably make its greatest contribution, and probably its most economically feasible and profitable approach to helping new businesses is to assist with some of those infrastructure and other requirements. There is a great deal of mobility in our population these days, and we can easily move from one venue to another venue, meaning from city to city, and so it is understandable that many residents in given areas of the city want or need a specific specialty store. These needs are really common needs shared by residents in most areas of our city. The Home Depot in South Provo is an excellent example of a big box store. It offers highly diversified commodities. It's also high-tech in how it approaches checkout and is very focused on friendly, accommodating customer service. In Provo city government, under my administration, we will do everything reasonably necessary to address those common and express features of our modern community. And it is for big box stores. The Costco store, unfortunately, is just too propitiously located in eastern Orem, where it can easily be accessed and patronized by Provo people. I was happy, for example, to see relocation of, even though it's a smaller Walmart store, to see Walmart on the University Parkway. I think there are opportunities. We already have a Sam's Club on South University Avenue, for instance, and maybe another big box store there that can fill some of those empty spaces on the east side of University Avenue would be an excellent approach. Clearly, here again, the city or local developers, commercial and business and large real estate interests can assist the city in creating maybe a second big box store on South University Avenue, where we have one at Provo, and there are vacant buildings at Riverwoods. We might want to consider in Provo having a competitor or one of these facilities locate in that area. It doesn't exactly meet the same parameters maybe of the density that's created there, but we already have medical and banking and financing interests. So I think we could have retail interests in additional retail interests in Riverwood. So they're just there's sufficient creativity and there's sufficient expertise among the citizens of Provo and in the interests that we all have here to bring those together to focus on this specific need. Let me go back to my prepared statements about this. There are also large retailers closing across the country. We're losing Sears, for instance. Filling that space is going to be challenging. Changes are upon us, and we must do everything possible to be prepared for economic influences that extend beyond our borders. In economic parlance, it's called externalities. Some of those you can control, and some of those you can't control. So we need to identify those and control the internal factors that we can and further grow and strengthen our economics. Within my first 90 days as mayor, and in full cooperation with the City Council, we will undertake initiatives in identifying, formulating, and researching, and take the necessary technical steps to address multiple and specific economic and commercial needs within our city. I don't know how long it's been since such an inventory is done, but we will approach it. If it hasn't been done before, then we will approach it then. The current council budget, and this is really important for citizens to know, the current council budget that was just approved includes a use of $50,000 of general fund surplus. And those revenues will be dedicated towards just this kind of a technological approach to undertake innovative economic and development actions. Social media is crucial. It's very important in response to the question about whether we should continue to use it in marketing Provo. Social media has grown and continues to be an essential, important, vital part and fundamental to the way we communicate and market in our contemporary society. It will continue in my administration, and we will endeavor to be on the cutting edge of ongoing and untiring efforts to communicate freely, often, and effectively with all sectors of our citizenry in Provo. We also use that media effectively to market the features of our community as we seek these economic initiatives that have been discussed previously in this setting. The population figures that I've seen for the growth of Provo indicate that we're in the range, we're between 115 and 120,000 people currently. As we assess this in the mid-2017 year. The projections over the next 10 years, in other words, by 2017, is that Provo City's population will grow to somewhere close to 130,000 people. Many of us in Provo are already seeing the effects of growth. There's greater traffic. There's more enrollment in schools. There's more people visiting the stores. I think there may well be for us in Provo at some future time an instance where we need to look at what's referred to in economic development circles as setting some parameters on the growth in Provo. We will grow up we'll grow higher downtown for sure, as we have seen over the last 10 years. But we need to be prepared for this growth. That rate of increase is not meteoric, but it's significant. And I was really interested in looking at these growth issues to be participating in a recent council hearing where the Sustainability Advisory Committee, represented by Don Jarvis and Professor Sean Miller, presented a report to the mayor and city council outlining their ongoing efforts to make Provo a more sustainable community. So on this issue, beyond common concerns such as optional pricing of solid waste collection and recycling services, this report by the Sustainability Committee outlines major efforts in clear air. Clean, clear air is vital. Volunteerism and providing developers with low-cost, cash flow positive funding for energy-efficient commercial projects. These areas of growth, I think, will affect us all. Professor Miller also reviewed an emphasis of Provo's Agricultural Commission. Many people and many citizens in Provo, I don't think, are aware we have an Agricultural Commission. And that commission's primary goal is preserving agricultural lands from urban sprawl. I'm quoting now from the report that was given to the City Council. Several large landowners in Provo are interested in agricultural easements, which is the sale of development rights to both preserve their land and provide for their families and retirement. The state legislature allocated $500,000 this year to the Leray McAllister, who is a great Utah County representative of the past. That Leray McAllister Fund for easements, and we should encourage allocations to that fund for the benefit of Provo landowners. Open space is going to be crucial to us, and managing this in the interest of landowners and as current property owners in Provo is crucial. As I had discussed earlier, I was raised in agriculture. I live in an agricultural zone currently in Northeast Provo. I love agriculture. I relate to agriculture, and agriculture is vital to Provo. So that's just an example of the concerns that we need to address as we look to the future of Provo. This also is of specific concern as we consider the growth and development in West Provo, and in concurrence with that West Side Master Plan that has already been adopted by the council after extensive hearings with the residents and landowners in the West, we will need to be cautious and careful and very cognizant of decisions so we address the specific issues and concerns and development patterns that are outlined in that plan. By the way, while I'm on growth and West Side development, I've become aware in this campaign of the need in West Provo for a, if you will, large box store, specifically one like a Winco or a Smith's or a Walmart or other such facility that serves the grocery needs of West Side Provo. Just the fundamental things that can be supplied. Ridley's also has a great store in central Orem that has not only groceries but hardware, for instance. There's just no doubt we can address that need. We just have to be conscious of it, and we need to move toward it, and we need to address it. So there might be other issues on growth that we'll want to discuss as specific questions arise. Solving the issues of housing in Provo and addressing affordable housing and homelessness are really three separate issues. It's, of course, vital and it has become more important with community development block grants and other federal funding for housing. Housing is one of the merit wants that we all have in society. After health care, a roof over our head is really significant. If our tummies are full, in thinking about the Maslow hierarchy of needs here, if our tummies are full and we feel safe and secure, then the next issue is security, where we really need a roof over our heads. We need a way to get out of the elements or to protect ourselves and our significant others, those who are with us. So I've looked at this some, and there's a couple of concerns. Provo seems to currently have an imbalance in its affordable housing and market rate, and between affordable housing and market rate housing. Oftentimes we think of affordable housing as subsidized housing. That's not always the case. Affordable housing can be non-subsidized housing, but if it's not built in an economic way to address the needs of its potential occupants, then it doesn't really serve the need it's intended. We likely have this problem because of the downturn in the economy in 2008 and beyond, where more and more young people were forced to live with their parents rather than be able to afford housing. And they're now coming out of that, and many of our younger people and needing homes and occupancy where they can begin their lives together and start raising families, or if they're working or whatever they're doing in the city. We do need to be careful to balance the amount of affordable housing with subsidized housing. Subsidized housing has become a major focal point of downtowns because of density issues and because developers get so much in the way of tax incentives to develop these types of homes. As your mayor, I will be very conscious in working with the housing specialists in the city and in the county and in the central Utah area here to make sure that we have a balance of the housing that's needed. I'm confident that we also need to, in preserving our way of life in Provo, make sure that the market rate housing receives its due emphasis. Market rate housing produces greater stability overall, typically, in a community, and we have some challenges in balancing the needs of low-income citizens with the advantages of home and private property ownership. It's just so fundamental to us as Americans that we express or have the right and control of property. It's really the protection of life that's mentioned, for example, in the Declaration of Independence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is the right and control of private property. I think it's a positive thing to encourage that. I think everybody wants that. The reality is everyone can't afford to own their own home and property. So as a society, we are sophisticated enough now and far enough along that we can maybe develop some smaller units that are low cost and provide for these special needs that are part of our community. As mayor, I will work closely with other city leaders, meaning the city council and the experts that we have on staff in Provo City, the citizens and developers, and we will very closely listen to neighborhood chairmen in addressing and solving our housing needs. We've spoken to some of those, and let me summarize those again. It's crucial that we not permit urban sprawl and that we have what's called concentric zone type of development as we move out. The infrastructure accompanies that. And we move into those areas only that seem to, for example, not have too high a water table or have other infrastructure issues that are concerning. We have this great corridor of the Provo River that runs through our city and through much of the west side. There's developable land on both sides of that river. The airport is expanding out there. We'll be talking more about the airport. There is a west side plan for development and specifically a master plan for west side development. There's a new high school. Provo High School is moving to the west side of the freeway, and we'll be serving the residents there. We've talked about the need to have a balanced commercial interest there that provides for the diversity of needs of the citizens, especially with everything from groceries to hardware to building materials and other light industrial things. So the main challenges for the city's west side plan, and it's fairly new, has been discussed, I think, as recently as earlier this year, calls for balanced growth, which is generally interpreted as carefully, thoughtfully, and strategically ensuring that all types of land use occur through planning and according to prioritized, reasoned patterns. Balanced growth also seeks to achieve both corresponding and equal amounts reserved for all land uses, for agriculture, for commercial, for light industrial. This is occurring, for example, along Geneva Road, where we already have some light industrial uses. And we have great recreational facilities. In fact, probably better recreational facilities on the west side than we do in any other part of the city, speaking generally. Residential, and as I mentioned earlier, the market rate residential needs to occur. We have seen between Provo and sister communities to the south the expansion of multiple housing. And while this is logical, right adjacent to the freeways and to arterial streets and collector streets, it's very logical to construct high density or multiple housing. In other areas, I think we have to be very cautious about approving that type of development if we are to ensure market rate housing and development that provides for the sustainability overall of Provo as a city. Let me complete this sentence by saying, the strength of planning for growth ensures that input is received from informed and involved citizens. Credence is given to the ideas, to the insights, to the suggestions, and to the recommendations from all citizens, affected property owners, in formulating and implementing a plan that will be the best for either the west side or for any other part of Provo. A lot of attention has been given to Provo's municipal airport. I think one of the first things we probably would want to examine is redesignating its classification. It's becoming an important and vital regional hub. It's also, in the winter months where inversions and problems occur at Salt Lake Municipal Airport, the airport of choice for a secondary landing for commercial flights. I believe that we have a great opportunity to expand this and make the Provo Airport even more vital for our air transportation needs. Fortunately, we have a lot of private plane owners also in Provo, and we have an outstanding aviation department that's located there from Utah Valley University, where new pilot training and other things are occurring. It's just one of those areas, when you look at the airport and think about it and use it and see how it has expanded over the last 10 years and where its potential is for growth. We have land already, fortunately, and we owe this to past city administrations where foresight and leadership has purchased adequate land for major expansions at the airport. And improvements have been made to runways and to control towers and other things that will allow us to seek and to actuate the growth that we are anticipating will occur at the Provo City Airport. I'm personally very excited to lead that effort over the next 4 years. We will be precise in Provo on basics such as infrastructure, surface transportation, surface improvements, and all adjustments we need to make, because Provo City owns the municipal airport. It is the Provo City Municipal Airport. It is the Salt Lake City International Airport that's owned by Salt Lake City. And cities have a primary role to address all of the diverse interests of citizens as well as incoming and outgoing passengers here at the airport. So it's most apropos that Provo is the owner of the airport, and we will be responsible for its growth into the future. It's a great opportunity to run for office in Provo because all of the interests and needs of the citizens, if you're out actively seeking them, come to you. And this is coming to me now in a major way. And the number one thing I'm hearing out there is that we have a lot of laws on the books, but maybe probably we're not enforcing the laws we have. Specific reference was made and is being made to our zoning compliance. What we have is people have determined that some of the properties they own that they're not occupying around town, such as individual homes, can be rented. And they rent by ordinance to 3 single individuals. Because of the space available in residence and because of the anonymity within residential areas, we're seeing infringement. And it occurs almost immediately. Once a home is rented, then it not only becomes a home or an occupancy for 2 or 3 students or young adults working, but it becomes a home for 5 and 6 and 7 or 8 single individuals who then, of course, typically bring not bicycles or horses, but automobiles, where parking is infringing on surrounding property owners in neighborhoods and becoming a major problem. So I'm hearing that we need to enforce and to make sure there is compliance with the laws that we have, especially as it relates to these issues of zoning. This does not mean that we can't have rental units in residential areas. They serve a purpose. There's a segment of the population that wants to rent and not own, and we need to accommodate those, but not at the expense of surrounding property owners where they're infringed upon. And we will need to take, and my administration will undertake, a very careful review of all that we're doing to make sure that we're enforcing existing laws. And we'll start by making those laws well known in each of the areas where we have zoning or compliance issues. This has just become a very vital, important, crucial area for municipalities to set those zones with reasoned and input from all the neighborhoods, and then to make sure as those zones were identified and the uses are specified and the enforcement actions are also specified, that we enforce what we have on the books. When I was city commissioner some years ago, these were issues. Mm-hmm. I think the things that we're talking about in terms of zoning enforcement are endemic to college towns, to university towns, where there is a need all at once by the young people for suitable and affordable housing, and proximity is an issue for many. Lack of transportation is an issue for many. So these are some market forces that all kind of converge in an area like around campus in Provo or in certain other areas where we can benefit most of all by the input from the neighbors who are there and on site, and by the cooperation with university officials whom I applaud, by the way, for building a new and modern, especially Brigham Young University, these new modern student complexes for living are beautiful, and they have created more open space on campus amazingly by tearing down the old Amanda Knight halls and the Helaman halls, not Amanda Knight, but for some reason, Heritage halls. Thank you so much. The Heritage, it took me a minute to remember that. The Heritage halls on campus and modernizing, increasing, and it's also intriguing, it's very interesting how Provo has substantially improved many issues on campus by controlling the parking and by involving law enforcement and by involving traffic patterns that don't permit such high density concentration. We may want to consider some of those same economies in terms of how our downtown grows and how we access that and how we provide for this intersection of these competing interests almost for demand for housing, affordable housing, but also to make sure that we have adequate parking and that we're specifically not infringing on the rights of others who are established there. I haven't seen plans for the new City Hall, but I understand that they exist, and I will be interested at an appropriate time to see those plans. This is always a challenging issue to know when old is old enough and new is new enough, and when demand has grown to the point where we need new facilities. Quite clearly, a new City Hall would have to be built on the existing site, and it very likely will go up in multiple floors while retaining the underground parking and perhaps adding to that parking. The Covey Center is also right adjacent, so I think it will be affected, and pretty dramatically so, by any new construction. I am not currently conversant with all of the economies and the factors that are going into the timing of this. I can say emphatically, at the right time, under the right circumstances, with the right approach, a new City Hall could be a great addition to downtown Provo. I think we need to make sure that it's exactly that. We have major private development down there that will need to be involved in that decision making. We have major traffic patterns to consider. We have a number of factors that will go into that decision. As a mayor, I will aggressively and enthusiastically look at all these options, and you can be assured as citizens that I will bring you the information on an ongoing contemporary basis so that you can know where those plans stand, what the thinking is, and the council also would be involved in any decision to build a new city and to fund a new City Hall. So it will be a cooperative city effort, and it will involve the citizens of Provo. What you see, or how citizens of Provo see the need for this unfolding. My vision for the city of Provo is to build on its strengths and correct any weaknesses. I have 5 major themes in my campaign. The number one theme for me is the number one role for government at the national level and at the state level, and it's our number one goal at the local level. We simply must provide for the security and public safety of residents as our top priority. A second theme for me is to build on and enhance the neighborhood system of input and engagement in the city dialogue that occurs. As city commissioner some years ago, and I believe the records of the city bear this out, we not only enhanced the role of neighborhood chairman, we actually took city commission meetings into the city, into each neighborhood, into Sunset View, into Grandview, into Edgemont, into Mazer, into Franklin, into Joaquin, into all of these neighborhoods where the citizens and the young people could see how the government operated. I just think it's so crucial for us to engage our citizenry and inform our citizenry. Out of this will come great benefit, not only as our young people come up with an appreciation for where they live and work, but as we as citizens become more informed and involved in government. In that respect, I see enhancing and expanding the role of neighborhood chairs. We have a quality of life in Provo that is unique. We need to be very cautious that that's preserved. A lot of people and national recognition has come to the city for the type of community that we have here. We need to make sure that that is maintained. That will involve these other areas that we've discussed here today, in economic development, in planning, in positive enforcement, and in a very proactive way encouraging these elements of our city that need to be yet enhanced and improved and vitalized. All of that occurs. My vision of Provo is to see all of this accomplished, and I welcome that opportunity to serve as your mayor over the next 4 years and to actively and enthusiastically address these issues in making Provo the community all of us know and love so much. My campaign theme is built on 3 fundamental activities. First of all, I will be leading. I will be leading the city departments and the mayor's office in serving the people. So leading, we will be listening, leading, listening, and responding are the themes of this campaign. And that is how we will go forward as mayor, and after the election, hopefully I will be your mayor. That's the themes that we will continue to foster as we serve in Provo City over the next 4 years. There are other technical details to add to all of that, and if you go to my webpage and see odellminer.org, you will see an active media relations effort so that this is easy for you to access and to know exactly what we will be doing as we seek to serve all of the citizens and the needs of Provo City over the next 4 years.